By the end of this video, I need you all to help me decide if this gaming mouse is actually worth it in the incredibly crowded space of gaming mice, or is it just a cosmetic showpiece? And that mouse is going to be the new GravaStar Mercury X Pro. It's been refreshed, updated, lighter weight, better specs, a little bit different shape, just all around updated from the previous one, which was definitely just a showpiece. We're going to go through everything about this as far as the shape, the feel, the performance, and talk about, is it a viable option for gaming now? Now, before I talk about measurements or any of that, I want to kick it off with the thermal tests. I think this is really going to justify what this mouse is, again, with those big old cutouts and stuff. And what the thermal test does is, you've been around through my videos, I do this on all of my mice, but if you're new here, what it does, as you see the mouse right now, it's cold, it's magnesium, right? So you're seeing it blue and green. But if I touch it, well, you can see my finger is red and it's hot. Wherever I touch it, it's gonna brighten up a little bit, whether it be green or red or whatnot. But as you're noticing with being magnesium, it does stay cool to the touch. But anyways, I wanna put my hand on it as I would actually be using the mouse like this pretty much. It sits in my hand right here, kind of rests down on my knuckles. Once we get done with the thermal test, I'll actually show you it sitting there, but you can actually see my hand going right through the cutouts there. This is definitely kind of like a relaxed claw is how I would use this mouse. Relaxed claw, maybe a little bit of fingertip in here and there. So anyways, let's go ahead and pull this up underneath the camera. Some heat is transferred now, letting go, and bam, you can pretty much see it right there. So my hand does touch right in the back there. Not so much like an ergo, because if we come to the side, you're gonna see it's just pretty much right there. Nothing too drastic on the front. And then right up here, you got that little gap. So you got the heat and then heat back there, but you got that gap in the middle. And then if we come to the other side, oh, camera is freezing. If we come to the other side, you're seeing the same thing. You got that little bit of heat there and then up to the front. Now you're seeing it cool off pretty quick. Again, that is because it's magnesium, and even when I put my hand on it, I feel it cool to the touch. So that's the cool thing about magnesium mice, if you got hot, spicy hands. But again, let me get this heat transferred one more time, show you, bam, and you can pretty much see it flowing right there. Gap on the back, just in the back, and then up to the front, hence it being that relaxed claw. And just to reiterate and show you again with the lights on about what I was talking about as far as the grip being a relaxed claw, this is pretty much how I used it pretty much all of the time, as my fingers can be right by the side buttons. It's kind of resting right up here by my mid knuckles, but it's not in the back of my palm there. Now I can pull it back here, but it's definitely uncomfortable when I get it into the back of my palm, as it's resting right back here, and I start feeling all these darn grooves and cutouts in this mouse, which become pretty darn annoying. So I would class this as, again, a bigger handed fingertip mouse or that relaxed claw. And if you all watched my recent review on the Pulsar Feynman, this is the same result I had right here. Whenever I put my hand on this being more of a palm grip mouse, I start feeling all those cutouts in the back since they're pretty big. Same with over here on the GravaStar mouse. You start feeling them, again, resulting in an uncomfortable, annoying feel during gameplay. It's the same result I had with the Pulsar that I'm having with the GravaStar. But now, let's go and talk about dimensions. And first off, the size of my hand. So you know when I state it's big, it's small, or whatever, you know the dimensions that I'm referring to. And I'm gonna go ahead and give you some real raw measurements, not just the manufacturer posted ones. We're gonna get some raw ones with the caliper here, and kicking it off with the length of the GravaStar mouse going front to back. We're getting right at, let me try to make sure I'm right in the middle. This is hard to measure here. 123.6, and why I'm stating it's hard to measure is you can see that back midpoint is cut out, so I kind of got to get it right on that back tip there, which my hand really doesn't touch it back there anyways. But as far as that grip width right here, I'm going midpoint to midpoint here, flaring out a little bit, we're getting 59. And talking about that flare out, you can see it's a little bit bigger here, and then it swoops up into there, as they did make the side buttons bigger, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I just want to show you that little bit of flare. So it's out there a little bit, and then it kind of swoops up into the mouse. And you can see you got that flare out in the back end here, going right by the feet. Ooh, let me get it on there. We're getting right at 63. If the camera can focus for us, it's trying to focus on the mouse here. Now, while I'm doing these measurements, you can see I do have the grips on here as well, which I think are definitely needed. If we pull it off, you can see you got the cutouts there, and that goes front to back. Previously, they had really big cutouts on the back, but these are some nice grips. Back to our measurements. I'm getting sidetracked here. Let me give it back to 0, and let's get it back to that mid grip point, or that hump from sensor to the top. We're getting right at 39. And then as far as lift off from the buttons up to the front, right around 19. So they are stating they increased the size a little bit bigger here. I will tell you what, I like the improvements they did with the build as far as in the hand, but talking about that grip again, it is that relaxed claw. If there's anything I can compare it to, it feels kind of like the Razer Viper V3 Pro. When you put this in the hand, I get the same vibe, kind of that relaxed claw, a little bit of fingertip I want. It's not big, it's not small, it's not medium, it's kind of in between that medium to large shape, and that's the same vibe we get over here with the GravaStar in the hand. It feels pretty darn similar to, again, the Viper V3 Pro. Now let's go and take a look at the weight of the new GravaStar mouse. And I will tell you what, just straight up compared to the previous version, I believe it was like their M1 or M2, like this one feels significantly better. It's nice and balanced. It is fairly lightweight. Like the differences they did here are significant. Now I still think there's some fluff on this mouse that can be removed, being that RGB bubble in the bottom. So if we turn it on, you can see the RGB turns on. You can customize it to what you want over here. Right? You got your Bluetooth and everything. So I think if they remove that, they can reduce even more weight and make this even better. But anyways, putting it on the scale here, you're gonna see it still comes in pretty lightweight at 53 grams. Like, holy smokes, they really improved this. It's nice and balanced. It definitely feels lightweight, and I still think there's room for easy improvements to make it even lighter if need be. But again, I think that 53 grams is pretty darn good. Now, one of my main concerns with any mouse like this, with a bunch of holes in it, incredibly lightweight, which I'm sure a lot of you all can relate as well. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but anyways, the Techne record will be coming out soon. But my main concern is always, how's the build quality? How's the build integrity of this? Is it gonna hold up? And I don't wanna sit here just talk about, oh, hey, I grip it tight. This is how it feels. This is where it flexes or whatever. I wanna actually use the force gauge meter, which I do in all my mice reviews. So again, we got a base point to talk about how far I press it in before it starts flexing, and you can relate that to your grip. So anyway, starting on the button side here, pressing it in, I would say right around, I can see that little bit of flex right around maybe 6 to 7 pounds. Definitely more prominent around 7 pounds. I doubt the camera can pick it up. And that's not just the grips that are pressing in right here. You might be able to see it better like this. If I press here, I don't know if the camera can pick that up. Again, it's pretty mild, but there is a little bit of flex on the side. It doesn't activate the buttons or anything like that, but you do got a little bit of give in there. So my concern why I do this test is how will that fare over time, constantly gripping it, right? You get the same thing on the other side here. If I press up more towards the middle of the side, it's right around at 7 pounds where it starts going in. We'll see if you guys can see this a little bit better in the camera. On that side, there you can see it a little bit kind of flexing in. Again, it's very mild, and talking 7 pounds, that's still a whole lot to press your mouse. Whenever you're just using it, you're really not going to feel that. It's really anything under kind of like that 5 pounds or right around that 3 or 4 pounds that you're really going to notice it. But up around 7, it's no issue. As far as the back shell here, where we just got these little spider web type things, we can press in up to 10 pounds, no issues whatsoever. On the back, on the side bit here, ooh, that makes me a little bit nervous, as we have seen some of these arms break on previous magnesium mice. But again, right here, no issue whatsoever. The only thing we have is, again, that little bit of flex on the side. But I will tell you what, with my time using this mouse, I never noticed it in game, and I am a firmer gripper. Now I want to talk about all the buttons on this mouse, which they are improved from the original one, but I want to give you a quick sound test first, and then I'll talk about them. So I'm going to take my mic, set it right up here so I don't get any vibration, and let you listen to them. So taking a closer look at the buttons on this mouse, I want to start by talking about the side buttons. As I mentioned before, they did change them. Definitely an improvement here. They're a little bit bigger. They don't have that little sharp bit on them. But one thing I don't like, again, with myself having to use the side grips with those cutouts in there, so this may not apply for you if you're not using the side grips. But anyways, whenever my thumb is sitting on it, coming up here, those side buttons are almost flush with the side grips. I can feel them and differentiate them, but I wish they kind of stuck out a little bit more. My thumb kind of rests on it, and I kind of just roll up there. I feel myself having to slide up or lift them up over there to really get to them, as it's almost flush with the side grips. But again, if you're not using the side grips here, it's really not that bad. You can truly decipher them a whole lot better. I just can't stand those side little grooves right there. It really annoys me. And as far as pressing these side buttons, let me tell you what, they are crispy front to back. Like, really nice job on these side buttons here. Now, coming up to the front buttons, they are magnesium, so you're not really gonna have much movement. You can see them jiggle a little bit, but they're in there pretty solid. You're never gonna notice that in game. One thing you will notice a little bit is, number one, they're crispy. Bam, right down to the point. Actuate, bam, and then right to business. But you do got a little bit of give after they actuate. You can kind of see that springy effect right there. So it doesn't stop right on the top of the shell as you're seeing. It actually can sink down into that. So hopefully the camera can see right here. You'll press it, bam, and it can go all the way down into that decorative shell right there on both sides. So again, if you're a firmer presser, you're gonna feel that excess give right there. Now, as far as the scroll wheel, in my personal opinion, it is a little bit thin. I kind of wish it was a little bit more plump, a little bit more wide, and you see you got a lot of excess space in there, and it's kind of weird because you got that rubber grip on the side and then that little plastic over there. So I don't know if it's just moving by itself, but if I try to budge it over, it kind of locks back into there as well. So it seems like there was an opportunity to make this a little bit bigger, as right now, it just feels thin in my personal opinion. Now, I want to show you the software real quick as well, as it is web-based here. As we're all pretty familiar with web-based software now, you connect your device, bam, you're good to go. Now, coming into the software, it can be a little bit finicky here and there. As you see, it does take a while to load. I got fantastic internet, but anyways, it does get a little bit buggy right there. Over here, you got your debounce time, your buttons that you can adjust, basic stuff, profiles. As far as battery life, you can see right over here, 48%. A little finicky, as well as sometimes when I had it charged to 100%, it would still show just the green as halfway. I don't know if that's just like the icon they're using or whatever, but I would kind of figure 100% the green would be all the way full. I don't know, whatever. I'm using an early version, so I'm sure they're updating in the background here as well. Coming over here to other settings, you got DPI stages you can use, and this is another finicky thing I experienced as well, which it is fixed now, but previously I'd be on like 800 DPI, but it would still be at, or I would set this, it'd be opposite. I'd set this, let's say 1300, but it would still be programmed as 800, if that makes sense right there. So it's just kind of preset here, but whatever you typed in is what it would be. So I don't know. Again, this is early copy, so a lot of the stuff is probably going to be fixed. As far as polling rate, again, you can adjust it up here. I left mine always at 4,000 polling rate. You got your lift-off distance, select mode, coded. Okay, I'm not too sure what that is. I never used that. Highest performance over here. This is how long it's going to perform, how long you want it to actually perform at that, but we're just going to turn that off so it always performs at the best. You got your ripple, angle, and motion snap. Macros. Over here is your lighting. You got some presets and then your colors, your brightness and such. Now, the thing I don't like about it is I can't adjust the RGB on the dongle. It's pretty much always green, but I wish I can just customize, again, the RGB effect on the dongle. Coming over here to settings, you got your pairing, sleep timer, and then again, your language. So the software is pretty easy, web-based, straight to the point, and I'm noticing the reason I showed you some of the hiccups I had is I'm just noticing them updated in the background already with the release of the mouse coming up. So nice to see, and I'm sure it will be improved down the road. Now, as far as the specs of this mouse, I'm gonna leave it right here so you can see them all right on the back of the box. There's no need for me to repeat back of the box specs or website specs. I'd rather talk about my time using it and the actual performance of it, which I was using the 8K dongle for my entire test. In talking about my time actually using this mouse and the performance of it, again, using the 8K dongle, which I leave all of my gear in 4,000 polling, no matter what it is, if it has 8,000 or anything, just to avoid any of those hiccups or stutters. I tend to have issues with 8,000. Keeping that 4,000 is butter smooth. That's not just this product. That's across every product I use. I leave them at 1,000 or 4,000. And again, talking about using the GravaStar one here, it was flawless. I didn't have any issues. The battery lasted long. Using it with wireless keyboards and wireless headsets, it was absolutely flawless. I had no issues with it, none with the buttons, none with that flex I talked about, and the core performance was, again, absolutely flawless. It was no difference. I couldn't notice the difference from this one or a Logitech or a Razer or a Pulsar. Again, mice these days, they're all pretty much top tier and they all perform so good. That's just the internal tech and specs that these products are packing nowadays. They're so good, and there's no difference here with the GravaStar. It performed flawless. But the one issue I did have, which doesn't really go in line with performance, again, it's kind of just into the build and aesthetics of this mouse, is underneath it, the feet. You see you got those little feet on the sides, which you all know I love big feet. I love the Zowie type of feet going all the way around. I'm not really into this whole dot craze and stuff, which is kind of like what you have right here. But even other than just the dots, the fault we're having is these feet are really in line design with the mouse. So you can see the bottom of the mouse, bam, and a feeder right there. You're almost getting like that Logitech effects, kind of like what we saw over on the Dex or the Superlight, where you got that frame and then bam, the feeder right there. So what you're getting is if you're using a softer surface, you almost feel a little bit of that drag right there. And it's just something I don't like. But you notice it even more with the GravaStar, because again, you got that frame going all the way along the side right there on both of those, and it goes right into the feet. So you notice that significantly if you're using a softer surface, which right now I'm using the Pulsar and Lethal Gaming Gear one, the Hyperion, which is, gosh, such a nice surface. But again, you just feel that drag in there. So there's two fixes they could have done here. Is number one, make the feet a little bit bigger, but I think better would have been making it bigger feet, which I'm not sure how they would do that with the design of this mouse. So I think option one would just be the feet being a little bit thicker. I will tell you what, they made some great improvements with this. The weight, the balancing of it, the side buttons, just the overall feel of it feels really good. I think it looks aesthetically awesome. I still think there's improvements for it, again, with them feet on the bottom, maybe the give on the buttons up there. But we all know GravaStar is not a gaming mouse company. They make really cool speakers and just sci-fi stuff. Like, this stuff is so stinking awesome. Like, check this thing out. Let's power this up here.
Ready to pair.
But it's just a cool piece that you display. And I still think that's what this mouse is. But I want to hear what you guys think about it down in the comments.